What up, fam? It's July 23rd, and we are in the midst of the great change, great awakening, great happening, and the great reasoning or grand rising of reasoning is what I'm hearing here. I think it's actually kind of funny, man, that you have this kind of insider perspective from spirit because you just get to look at things from a different place, and I'm glad I just get to share it with all you beautiful people out there, man. It's been a while, dude. There's all kinds of shit going on, man. Uranus, changing signs and the surprises and the upheavals and uprisings that it has brought along with it. Of course, with the other astrological giants out there in the outer planets and stuff. Have caused things to literally change abruptly in a lot of people's lives, man. And obviously you could see by the backdrop I'm no longer where I'm at, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's a very beautiful blessing as long as we have the ability to embrace what's being given to us, man. I remember saying it a couple months ago, is like when my wife turned me on to astrology. I was like, bro, you guys got to watch God's clock, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's not necessarily time-based, even though that we use time as a reference here or a form of communication. That's about it. So we know when things are coming and know when things are happening and know when we got to be there or do that or whatever, but not necessarily be in total expectation of chaos or some type of, finite outcome, because it's all fair game right now. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I gauge from the energy right now is that, that collective irritation and agitation that has been coming up and over and over and over again, and they're mentioning Mars as being kind of like the catalyst for that. Today being a Mars Venus thing, you're going to notice love and compassion, moments of emotion, but also moments of frustration and infuriation is what I'm also hearing, simply because of the fact that the energy is still trying to acclimate to itself. It's trying to balance itself out. And right now in our lives, obviously you can see that things are chaotic. It's kind of hard to be peaceful, or you have to pay double attention, if not triple attention, to the fact that you need to be grounded, or you need to be aware and stand in your presence, especially for those of you who are highly sensitive. Highly recommend making sure that you're doing some form of groundedness. Obviously you can see that I have the sound bowls here, and the sound bowls here not only are to stabilize my energy, but it's also part of my healing practice that I do for others. Sound healing, guided meditations, energy healing, Reiki, and sound bowls. That's kind of like my jam right now, and this is kind of like what things have evolved into in my life, especially with Uranus. It's like, hey, it's time to put hands on people. It's time to really, really, you know, what I'm hearing is really endow others with the blessing of the Creator. you know So, for those of you enlightened ones, or you have a certain healing practice, just remember what the divine purpose of your practice is. It's not just about you. And we can get caught up in selfish, just selfish ways of seeing things, or selfish intentions, periodically, not realizing that it's just an uprising, it's an upbringing, and we catch ourselves 3:30 as I said that, you know, that you realize in that moment that it's like, oh, wait a minute, that didn't feel right. You know what I'm saying? Oh, hold on a second, dude. I can't say that anymore. I can't do that. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't feel like doing this anymore. These are all part of that upbringing, that uprising, and that changing that is going on in a lot of collective and stuff like that. Three chakras stick out to me today, and that is the eye. It is also the heart and the solar plexus. Be mindful of your sacral energies as well. Deeply rooted as always, fam. You know what I'm saying? Just making sure that you're paying attention to your P's and Q's, the spiritual insight that a lot of people are receiving right now. These aren't for the bottom feeders, man. These are for the people that actually do the work, the people that are interested in knowing themselves. You know what I'm saying? And I don't mean to classify and label anybody as a bottom feeder, but let's just put it this way, bro. The work proves itself, and for those of you who actually do the work, that it works. You know what I'm saying? And I got goosebumps as I say this, because this is for the ones that chose. This is for the chosen ones. These are for the people that actually take their spiritual life seriously, and they dedicate themselves to viewing through the looking glass as a spiritual being having a human experience. So, I don't want to confuse anybody out there. Let's be clear on who I'm talking to here, because I believe there's a misunderstanding there. I'm not just some crack nut job just coming out here spewing things for clout. No, I'm coming out here delivering facts and knowledge and wisdom and experience to those things to become more obvious of what is happening right now, because we're going through a transition and a split, right? And part of that split is an AI God, all right? Let's just put it this way. We're not going that way. You know what I'm saying? And if you're here and you're questioning that, you have a decision to make within yourself, because the divine is nothing less than the divine, and it will always be that way, right? And I have to tell you that because that's what Spirit is saying. And I believe it's kind of like the way that I feel it is a very stern message to be mindful of what is true and authentic and divine versus not the real you, is what I'm hearing. You know what I'm saying? Authenticity is something that we speak of, you know, periodically, because the authentic, genuine truth of yourself is something that you have to push past boundaries and belief systems and ways of being to be able to engage in a more divine perspective of what it is to be a sovereign being. And this is what's really funny, man, is because God's showing it to us always. This is a giving universe, okay? It is a giving universe that is matched by frequency and vibration. So anything you want is based on the frequency and vibration that you have, right? But there's rules to this shit. There's discipline. There's awareness that needs to be had, because if you're going to be consciously manifesting your desires, your dreams, your goals and ambitions, for example, right? You need to understand that your vibe has to be right. It has to be pure. It has to be clean, because if there's any dirt in the system, it'll fuck it up in one way or another. It won't necessarily work out the way that it was intended, simply because of the fact that there was something that was impure that was associated with the manifestation. And I'm not saying that you're dirty, that you're impure. No, what I'm saying is that we need to have more compassion when we make these intentions, and make sure that we follow through. My wife was talking about this yesterday because it came out in the collective message. It's like, hey, dude, it's that set it and forget it mindset, dude. I don't think that works, bro, to be honest with you, because when I tune into the set it and forget it, yeah, you're actualizing and you're putting something in motion and you're calling it out to the universe, but there's nothing to back it up and continuously pull it in, to bring it in, to attract it. You know, there's no learning, there's no upheaval, there's no, you know what I'm saying? Because it's a give and take reciprocation. And when we realize that when we ask for something from a place of purity, from a moment of purity, whatever is impure when we're asking for it is something that we usually have to grow out of to receive, right? And then when we do receive it, it either looks better or worse than what we intended it in the first place, depending on what we're holding on to, what type of ignorance. They know not what they do. You know what I'm saying? We need to be compassionate with ourselves, dude, when we realize that one of the reasons why shit ain't working out the way that it's supposed to work out is because you have a you problem. You know what I'm saying? And that's the accountability, responsibility of understanding the spiritual discipline that is associated with frequency and vibration to match your manifestations and, you know, create the greatest and highest outcomes for yourself, timeline shifting, ascension, and all those things, right? So I hope this information reaches those who it needs to reach, and I trust and I have faith that it will, because you know what I'm saying? This is not for the meek, dude. This is not for the lighthearted. This is not for people that just want to fucking ride a bandwagon, man. It really isn't, dude. And I'm sharing these experiences and this opinion, and you could say, about it, simply because of the fact that those were my experiences and my realizations as well. You know? It's like, dude, when you turn your eyes to God, especially when you haven't been looking for so long, right? Or you turn your eyes to the universe, the creator, spirit, you know, the divine. You know what I'm saying? I like that word. When you turn your eyes, it shows you everything that you can't see. You know what I'm saying? So none of the things, 919, as I say this, none of the things that you're doing right now are in vain. Okay? Even if it looks like shit. Because when you start focusing on the blessings of whatever it looks like, that's when you set yourself free from the things that have been confining you, allowing those possibilities to open to a more vast approach or area that you get to work with, right? And, you know, I mean, we might be speaking science here is what Spirit is saying. So let me break it down for you. This morning, you know, my daughter woke up in a bad mood, man. And she just literally wanted to tear the walls down, you know? And don't tell me that there's people that don't have those days, because we do, dude. Because especially when we're psychic and we're really sensitive and we don't know any better, we have a tendency to act out, bro. And I don't care how old you are, it's the fucking truth. Look at it. You know what I'm saying? And this morning, it was like I can't feed that energy, but I can support it because it's my child, right? So, being supportive and being compassionate where normally I'd be laying down the law is something that I haven't done before, but also realized that that was the approach. So Spirit told me reproach. So it's kind of like a reapproach of those things. You know what I'm saying? Taking a different angle, all right, to navigate these situations that come up consistently, because it's important. And this is kind of like really important. Once you become aware of something, that's where everything changes. Okay. Check that shit out, dude. Seriously, when them goosebumps or you get that revelation in that moment that you have that revelation, everything changes. Your frequency changes. It's instantaneous. This is why I'm telling you it's a giving universe, fam, because the second that you change your vibration, everything that is on that level of vibration matches you, mirrors you, reflects you, teaches you, shows you. You know what I'm saying? Or shuns you, makes you fall apart. It could it could tear the paper in half with you. You know what I'm saying? But that's just how life is. When you, in a nutshell, is what Spirit is saying. When you realize that, okay, I am too controlling, and maybe I need to surrender more. Yeah, I took the pause. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a beautiful statement. Because when you actually take the moment to tune into the words that are being said, you could feel the love behind it. And this is what we need to do more before we respond, before we react, before we go out into the world and fucking start doing our thing because we're excited or we're hyped up or we need to do this because our bills need to get paid or, we think we're ready, all that anxious, unconscious bullshit that literally gets stirred up when you're actually doing something that's not authentic to you. Yeah, that part. You have to learn how to flow with the universe, and the universe always has your back. Knowing that the universe has your back and teaches you that flow when you're in acceptance of it, like it is right now. Let's tune in that for a minute and let's see what the universe has for us in a moment of silence where we realize that there's something that loves you that isn't you, that's outside of you, but it also in you, and it is you, right? And even though that could raise a lot of questions, it's that humble discipline that we have within ourselves right now in this moment, and a respect to the belief of we are the sovereign divine beings that we are, or answering the higher calling, that we get to embrace this moment, cherish it for what it is, bring ourselves clarity, ask for the things that we need: guidance, wisdom, knowledge, connection, communication. You know what I'm saying? And then taking that very conscious effort that we did in this moment right now and allowing ourselves to navigate from this space versus the ones that you were doing before we spoke. Salam. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to... God, it's so beautiful, dude. You almost don't want to fucking say anything. That's how much I love stillness. It could be addicting for some people, but, this is where we get the most explanations. This is where we get the most state of observance. This is where we get the divine information. You know what I'm saying? This is where we don't allow ourselves to succumb to somebody else's bullshit, right? This morning, I could have easily fed that. No, I decided not to feed that, and it stabilized naturally. And then went to the gas station this morning because we needed some stuff from the gas station. And dude, the wounded in this woman, this lady, this clerk, I've seen her for, I don't know, I've seen her on and off for a couple years, dude, and it's always the same shit. Attitude, the highest of high, chin up, so fucking proud, but so egotistical at the same time. And I could tell that she was triggered from the moment that she gazed her eyes upon me. Hello, healers. This shit happens all the time, man. We just become more obvious of these things. You know what I'm saying? So I decided to where normally I would shut my mouth, become introverted, not talk to anyone, put my eyes to the floor. I decided to meet and greet that with the greatest amount of compassion that I could muster up in that moment, especially after dealing with a hostile situation in the morning, where we realized that distractions, the spirit of distractions and the spirit of disruption are chaos. Okay? You know, it's a three whirlwind fiasco. Let's just put it that way. You know what I'm saying? Even in my personal experiences, I've been witnessing this through people. Right? So this lady, you know what I'm saying, was looking for a reason for me to interact with her, and I did not give her the time of day because I understood that that's what she wanted. She wanted me to feed her fucking ego, and I was like, no. You know what I'm saying? Because the best way to kill an ego is not to feed it, right? And that bro, write that one down. So, you know, after going to the gas station, you know, the clerk, I met her with kindness. I met her with compassion. I was very cordial and I was very respectful. And that lady did not know what to do with herself, to the point where she had to become personally involved with the clerk that gave me the wrong items that I had asked for, and literally had to take over and kind of make herself present around the whole thing and try to stir up the energy and stir me, you know what I'm saying? Because she says that I owed more than what I had intended, you know, trying to trigger me in one way or another. You could feel all that shit, fam. Okay? You could feel all that shit. And this is what people go through on a daily basis, not knowing that there is physical adversity in the world that will purposely disrupt or distract you from your path. Okay? And let this be a profound example of something so fucking minuscule, but yet so big, when you have the seeing eye, the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and the ability to feel what it is that's going on. And this is what we're talking about today, fam. So much love to each and every one of you. Be perceptive, dude, because it comes naturally, you know? For those beings who actually practice the practice and understand that this is not a practice, that this is a way of life. Okay? And we've been looking at everything backwards for too long. All right? This message is for you. So much love to each and every one of you. You have a beautiful and blessed day, fam. I'm trying to keep it consistent. Obviously, you know, there's a lot of things that change in my life, you know what I'm saying? But I promise, you know, I'll be here as much as I can. So much love. Take care, fam. Till next time. Peace.